Welcome to another episode of Founders Club. Today we're going to be talking to Michael K. Cobb, who is the founder of ECI Development. He's also an international real estate developer who has developed over 2,500 acres in Belize, Panama, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica. We are going to be breaking down the process of international real estate development. We're going to be talking about how you can find, fund, build, and exit your international real estate development projects and the biggest opportunities he sees coming in the next 5 to 10 years. If you have any questions, put them in the box down below. Make sure you judo chop that like button so other people just like you can find this podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you join our free Facebook community, link in the description. And as always, if you like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button because this is the show for you. We'll see you on the inside. Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs. All right. Well, very excited to have you on today, Michael. Really appreciate you making the time out of your day. Really excited to have you on for a couple of reasons, but I think the stuff that you've done in the real estate development kind of international space is really cool. You've obviously done a lot of development in Central America, Belize, Nicaragua, Costa Rica.
Yep.
You've developed, several thousands of acres. And really looking forward to just get your insight on all things real estate development internationally, from as simple as, how do I go down and buy a lot and perhaps build a dream home, all the way on up to investment opportunities and kind of bigger deals that you have going on.
Fantastic. No, it's great. I mean, these are great topics and it is exciting. A lot of people are going overseas. They're looking at property overseas. You just mentioned you were down in Costa Rica for a month with your family, having some fun surfing. And, and for a lot of people, this is how it begins, right? You go to a place like Costa Rica and you enjoy yourself. You go back and you do. People think to themselves, gosh, I'd love to live down here. I'd like to have a vacation property or for the business oriented people, I can see the incredible opportunity to, maybe buy a piece of property and build a little, 2-3 room bed and breakfast and take care of the surfers who are coming down. So it ranges the whole way across, but yeah, however, for many people that first spark is the trip down there where they just have a fantastic time like you all did.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of touch on that, I did coming out of COVID, we were looking for kind of a vacation, something that would be, very outdoors, because at that point we were just all about wanting to be outdoors, wanted to be on the beach. Ended up choosing Costa Rica, went down there for 30 days with the family, kind of worked as I went and enjoyed the family. And obviously, like, we were just talking about the fact that the air temperature is 84 degrees and the water temperature is 84 degrees. It's pretty amazing. And it's, a really special place, the whole Central American region. And, but just to kind of take one step back from all that, I know you've lived down there for 15 years almost. You've done a lot of development down there, but how did it start? How did you get into real estate development down in, I guess, Belize or Nicaragua, wherever you started?
It was Belize, actually. This is going back all the way to 1993. So, 30 years ago, I went to Belize with a buddy of mine. He was working. He's an asset protection attorney. He was doing asset protection trusts for physicians. He just called me up one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to Belize. You want to go?" And this is long before Google or anything, right? It's 30 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then I'm scratching my head. We're still talking on the phone. I'm scratching my head. I'm like, Belize, where's Belize? So finally I have to fess up. All right, dude, I have no idea where we're going. Where are we going? So anyway, so whatever. We went down. He was working. He was setting up a trust for a doctor, and I was just playing. And I said, man, this place is awesome. We were on Ambergris Key, little town of San Pedro. So I said, well, if you're coming back, he said, yeah, I'm coming back in a couple months. Come with me again. So whatever. We went back down the second time. We're putzing around. We're looking for real estate. We find a couple condos, side-by-side condos, and we put an offer in and we get them, right? And so we're really happy. I start going down there 93, 94. But what happened? Oh, this is crazy, right? This is what happens to so many people. The developer, his name's Jim. Jim, the developer, he didn't know what he didn't know. So he came to Belize with, I don't know, 3-4 million bucks. He bought a piece of property. He built the first 11 buildings with 4 condos in each. So he had 44 condos in the first horseshoe. So if you can imagine this horseshoe of property with the pool in the middle and the ocean out there, 44 condos that all look at the ocean, right? It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Right. So we bought in the second horseshoe. He had the first building done, the second building done, and then like the next 3 buildings in this horseshoe were in construction. And over the course of almost like a year, like nothing happened on these 3 buildings. And so Joel, my business partner, Joel and I are hanging out by the pool one day, and Jim comes by and, Jim, what's the deal? You know, you're a developer, you know, obviously you need to finish these buildings, sell them, and then you can make money. That's what you do for a living. And he tells us this story. He's like, well, guys, I'm stuck. I mean, what do you mean you're stuck? Well, I have all these people that want to buy my condos, but they want to finance them, right? They want to put 20% down, 30% down. He says, but the banks here in Belize, they're not going to lend money, you know, to a foreigner or a gringo, right? And the banks up in, you know, in the U.S., they're not lending money on a condo in Belize. And so my buddy and I are just sitting there, and when we had bought our condos, he asked us, I mean, you're going to pay, can you pay full price? And yeah, we'll pay full price. Well, not full price, but pay the whole thing in cash, right? And we got a 20% discount for wiring the money. We wired full payment and got a 20% discount. And my buddy, Joel, he just looks up at Jim. He said, hey, Jim, would you sell us your paper for a 20% discount? And I'll never forget the look on Jim's face. He just kind of cocks his head like this and he goes, yes. It was just like that. And all of a sudden a business was born. So we went back. I was in the computer business, went back to a bunch of my buddies in the computer business. Joel went back to a bunch of his clients, and we put together a little over, a couple million bucks, just over a couple $1 million. Went back down and we started buying paper, 12 to 14% interest paper. This is, pretty good rate for 80 cents on the dollar, right? And so
for what, 80 cents on the dollar?
Yep, we bought it for 80 cents on the dollar, 12 to 14% paper, and it was mature, right? We went to the developers and bought their paper, right? We didn't originate loans. We just went to people who were sitting on paper and they didn't want it, right? So they were willing to discount it to get rid of it. So that was 1994. So that was 29 years ago. And my buddy, he's the lawyer, he's the deal guy, the money guy, contracts, kind of stuff, right? I'm the boots on the ground guy. So I'm out inspecting all this collateral, and I'm walking into homes, I'm walking into condos, I'm stomping around beach lots and whatever, right? And I can remember this one example, and this is again 94, 95, I don't remember, sometime in that period. And I don't have a camera, right? I had a phone, but it didn't have a camera on it. Anyway, and I remember walking into this house, and there was, in the living room, there was one outlet on one wall with 2 outlet strips plugged in, with extension cords plugged into the outlet strip, with outlet strips plugged into the extension cord, and then one more time to get power the whole way around this living room, right?
Okay.
Yeah, right. I mean, the lights in the bathroom were back here instead of over here. The counters were too high or too low, and you bang your knees. I mean, there was just like, I don't know, 20 things wrong with the way these houses and condos were built, because it just didn't follow standards. And Joel and I looked at each other and we're like we could fix all of these problems for basically free, right? I mean, an outlet's $10. Okay, so you had 21 outlets, and it's $200, right? But I mean, like literally everything could be fixed for almost free, and we would deliver a product to a North American consumer that they would expect. It would be familiar, right? Everything would kind of be normal, and so that was the genesis of our second business, the development business, to serve a middle-class consumer who was looking for a North American standard product that just simply didn't exist in the marketplace. Kind of like the mortgage money. There was no mortgage money. It didn't exist. We filled that hole. A middle-class product, $100,000 to $150,000, $200,000 product at that time that would meet a North American's expectations. And so that was the genesis of both of those businesses.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So if I'm understanding you correct, you started with the financing space because you noticed that Americans couldn't get financing down there because the banks, it's basically a cash business down there, or you're not getting a loan. So you kind of saw that gap, were able to merge the gap. And then that turned into, once you started servicing all these loans, that started turning into, hey, why don't we actually build a better product that's more up to the North American buyer standards.
Yep.
And then that's how you went down into the real estate development road in those countries.
You got it. That's exactly right. And it was really just seeing a need and serving it, right?
And so
Yeah,
how did you tell me about your first development deal down there? Obviously that's got to be very foreign to you, in terms of, learning the rules, the regulations, the legal landscape, all of that.
Yeah, it was it was tough. So we started our development company in '96, and we kind of punched around the edges of it for a couple years. We didn't really dive in. We sort of waded in, right? But in 1998, we actually purchased our first resort property. So we purchased a small little resort called the Playador on Ambergris Key. We renamed it the Exotic Key Beach Resort, and I think it had like four or five condo buildings. The sixth one was under construction, and then it needed, 3 or 4 more buildings that we then built over the next couple of years. And so we did. We kind of waded into it nicely. We made a ton of mistakes. I mean, you can just imagine trying to take over a resort that it was basically, it had 22% occupancy. It was just dying. And there were a lot of reasons it was failing, but anyway, the occupancy. And so we took it over. We finished the one condo building. We finished the rest of the condos, and we built that up. And actually what's interesting is, we understood that it was almost a land bank, that it was a small resort. It ultimately had about 30 rooms. So it was just barely feasible from an economics, the scale of economy and things like that. But we did understand that the value of that property, that 300 feet of beachfront property, was very, very valuable and likely to grow in value over years. And in fact, we were able to acquire the property next to it about 10 years ago. We've torn the whole thing down, and that's actually where we're building our Marriott resort and residences right now in Belize. So
Nice.
Yeah. And at the time, the height restriction was 2 stories. That was the max. And over the years, it went to 3, 4, 5. So we now have the ability to build not just a 2-story property, but a 5-story property on that. And so we've increased the value of the land, but we've also increased the value of the asset we can put on the land. So it was just kind of some of it's luck. You're just looking into the future, anticipating some of these things will happen. But I call it the path of progress, and this, or time machine investing, right? 30 years ago, we looked at Cancun and we said, "Wow, see where they are today. How did they get there?" And over the last 30 years, Belize has kind of followed the pattern of Cancun, about 30 years behind. Right. I mean, it's just so you can kind of look and see what's next. And branded hotel product was the next evolution of product type of hospitality accommodations. And the very first branded hotel opened about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, just before COVID. It was a Curio product. Then there was an Autograph product. We picked up the Best Western franchise. We got that about a year and a half ago. And we picked up the Marriott franchise, and we started work on that at the very end of last year. And we're under construction now, full bore, this year. So, right. But this evolution from niche product, nobody'd ever heard of Belize, including me 30 years ago, to now there's cruise ships. I mean, there's 2, 3, 4 cruise ships a day stop in the destination in season, right? So you got 10, 15,000 people getting off, getting familiar with it. Well, when those cruise ship customers come back, because some of them will, not all of them, in fact, a very small percentage, right? But some percentage of those people come back. And when they look for a place to stay, they want a branded product. They want certainty, right? They want to know what they're going to get. They're going to get a bottle of water in the room. They're going to get a coffee maker that works. So the mainstream traveler, the mainstream vacationer to Belize is this new evolution in the destination. And what's really interesting is, a country like Nicaragua, for example, way back on the curve, not very popular, but over the next, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it's going to move up this popularity curve, this path of progress. So you can kind of put yourself once again in front of it and have this time machine investment. And different countries, you were in Costa Rica, it's much further up. It's not as high up, say, as Cancun. That's probably the pinnacle of tourism per se in the region, right? Costa Rica is a couple steps behind. Panama is a couple steps behind that. Belize a little further back, right? But Nicaragua, the next one coming through. So it's really cool to see it and be able to participate in it and lead it, but also then anticipate it and be in front of that curve like your surfer. I mean, you want to kind of just be right there in front of that wave to ride it. And
Most definitely.
yeah, and it's the same philosophy on the investment side in the region. Yeah.
It's very cool. So when you're trying to put these deals together, I want to kind of break that down, like how you put together a deal like this. So I'm assuming you're, deciding on a location based on the criteria you kind of just mentioned, that 30-year curve of where you see tourism going, things like that. Countries that are, growing, countries that are well managed, that are safe, all these
Yes.
other things. So once you kind of pick a market, what's next? And are you doing this through a fund, or how do you put it all together?
Sure. Great question. And it is in the sense of anticipation, right? You don't know. Obviously, nobody can predict the future, but a lot of things do kind of follow along in a pretty logical process or a logical format. So when we're looking for development opportunities, we understand where something is in this development curve, but also who the consumer is, because there's no great business decision unless somebody wants to come own it, right? That's the bottom line. You got to have people who want to own your product or service before you have a good business. So we spend a lot of time looking at the marketplace and finding out what people want to own. And because we've been doing this so long, I speak at about 30, 40 conferences a year. I guess maybe 15 or 20 of them are live now. They all used to be live in person. And because of that, for the last 30 years, I spend a lot of time talking with people at these conferences. These are, offshore conferences, retirement conferences. A lot of them are freedom-oriented conferences, people looking for plan Bs. They're worried about what's happening in the US. So we got this whole range of people. I call it running from, right? People who are looking for an escape for some reason. They didn't like the lockdowns, or they don't like what's happening politically on either side, right? Or on the right and on the left. It doesn't matter. They're motivated to run from, right? And then there's a whole nother group that are running towards higher quality of life, lower cost of living. So you've kind of got these elements. And so I speak at a variety of events that have these types of folks at them. And I talk to everybody. I listen. It's my market research, right? Because the time frame for people to close on a property overseas is 6 months to 6 years. And that's one of the things that's really, right. I mean, you work with a lot of brokers and agents. I mean, somebody comes to San Diego looking for a house. Chances are 30, 60 days later, you're sitting at a closing table, right? You pick a house, right? Our business is very different. It's 6 months to 6 years. And so because it's this long lead time, when I'm out mixing with people at these events and conferences and other types of activities, right, we really pick up a lot of market information that allows us to kind of forecast where things are going over the next 3, 4, 5 years. And that's fairly predictable, right? I mean, you get much beyond 5, it's pretty, pretty gray, pretty fuzzy, right? But that 3, 4, 5, you can get a pretty good handle on that. And again, I've talked to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people at this point over 30 years. And I don't know, you get a sense for where things are headed. And then you put yourself a little bit in front of it, not too far in front of it, right? Like the surfing, you don't be too far in front of that wave, you get smashed, right? So, trying to time it. And some of it's science, the data, right? And we bring in third-party analysts, third-party folks that do economic analysis, consumer analysis, and they provide what I would call the hard facts. And then there's sort of the art side of it, which is, the feeling, because so much of it is buzz. So much of it is just simply buzz, and you can't pick that up in the data, right? And so you got to be out in it. You got to listen for it. And so between the art and the data, the art and the science, you can find the right properties. And that's the big picture. Then it just drills down to, is the product pretty? Is it sexy? Right? I mean, like sexy sells, right? And boring doesn't. So you get down to the specific property itself. There's some fundamentals. And then obviously at the very, very, bottom line, the money, right? You talked about, do we bring, how do we fund? We've funded our business over the last 27, our development business over the last 27 years with private equity. We've gone out, we have shareholders in our company, and we've grown our business very slowly, conservatively, methodologically to absolutely make sure that we have the funds to expand at a very prudent pace. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
See a lot of people
Smart.
grow too fast. I mean, and we have some people with deep pockets who are shareholders that if we see a quick little opportunity that's a really good one, we just did. In last fall, we bought a bed and breakfast in the Azores, Portugal. Kind of crazy. It's our first European foray, but it was a phenomenal opportunity for us to get into Europe at a very, very right price, right time. Again, getting in front of catching the buzz. And so we have folks that can help us in those immediate moments with a significant dollar transaction. But by using an equity-based model, we've been able to stay out of trouble when the market cycles in 2008, 9, 10. Many 80, 90% of our competitors went out of business. They had loans. I mean, they weren't selling anything, and they just simply couldn't make their mortgage payments. And then we were able to buy a condo building in Flamingo, Costa Rica, out of foreclosure. Citibank had it. We went to, they put it out there. We bought it. So those kinds of opportunities exist sometimes too, right?
And then is your main goal in these, are you buying and holding them as a company? Is that kind of your strategy?
We do some of
both. Or are you
both.
flipping them or developing them and selling them, or is it kind of a mix?
It really is a mix. So, for example, a lot of our greenfield stuff, our Grand Pacifica community, we have 3.5 miles of Pacific Ocean beachfront. And it was our big first project. Yeah, we bought the property in 2000. We started developing it in 2002, 2003. Our first homes and condos were complete in 2006. And little simple things going all the way back. I mean, we put fiber to the home back in 2005. We were the first fiber to the home community in all of Latin America. And we continued with the fiber system, and things have gone, obviously wireless and stuff like that. But here's an incredible example. We were approached by a group of people 6-8 months ago, last fall, who wanted a low EMF community. They're concerned about 5G. They're concerned about the EMF. And there's hundreds of thousands of people who have these sensitivities and these concerns. They'd read about us having fiber. They said, wow, you guys have fiber optic. It's a low, no 5G and stuff like that. Would you build a neighborhood for us? And that's what we're doing. We're in the process of putting that neighborhood together for them. And that's great. Yeah, that one will sell most. We like to try to keep some. We might build an apartment block where we keep those, and those become rentals. Typically in a single family home development, we will offer, almost all of those. We'll keep 2 or 3 just to have a few for our internal people moving around, things like that. But our Marriott, here's a great one. In our Marriott in Belize, we're keeping 60%, at least 60% of the residences as a corporate asset, because they really are going to cash flow incredibly well. And that's one of the questions. And we put together a consumer resource guide, and one of the questions in it talks about developers all over the region, like they're going to show you these performa sheets. Oh yeah, it's 60% occupancy, ADR $200. You're going to make 12, 13, 14%, whatever it is, right? If you can make 12, 13, 14% at the retail price, which is what you sell it to an investor at, right? Maybe you sell 10 of them, it's a wholesale price, but you're still making money on it. If you can make 12 to 14% on the price you sell it to someone else, what would you make on your cost basis, right? Presumably it'd be significantly higher, 20%. Why would you sell any more than you would need to? Right? I wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense.
It does. And so one of the questions that we ask people to ask when they're looking at investment opportunities overseas, like in condos or something like that, is, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Developer, this is a great opportunity. You're showing me how this performer makes lots of great return. How many are you keeping? Right? How many are you keeping?
Yeah, okay? That's a good question.
It is, but most people wouldn't think to ask it. right?
Right.
And
And back to that consumer resource guide, because you just mentioned that, and I know you
right.
put that together as like a great resource for people that want to learn more. How do they get access to that, just so we can get that out of the way?
Oh, sure. I mean, just send me an email, info@ecidevelopment.com, and just stick consumer guide or something like that in the subject line. We'll send you a PDF. You download it. It's got 15 questions that people should ask when they buy property overseas. And a lot of them are visual. And so one of my favorites, and this is insane, is here's the question. It's question number 4 in the guide. Are all of the bathrooms plumbed for hot and cold water? Right? You're buying a condo or house. Okay. There was a condominium complex in Costa Rica. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say where, whatever. Condo complex in Costa Rica, 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath, I don't know, 4th, 5th story, beautiful views of the Pacific Killer. $1 million views, right? The thing was $379, so under $400,000 for this 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath condo, and and they got it right in so many ways. The lights were over top of the mirror. The bathrooms were nice. The countertops, the faucets were American Standard or Moen or Delta. I don't know, just, nice $150 faucets, right? Okay. If you got down on your hands and knees and looked under the sink, what you saw was a cold water pipe coming out of the wall with a Y splitter so that both of the taps up on the sink had water. But they were both, yeah, right. But they were both cold.
Both cold. Right? Wow.
And so were the showers. 2 of the 3 bathrooms. The master bedroom did have hot and cold water, but the 2 guest bathrooms, right? The guest suites with the bathrooms, cold water showers. And we as North Americans just simply couldn't even think that you'd have to get down on your hands and knees and look under the sink, right? And so what we've learned over 27 years, and by the way, I've made a lot of these mistakes, and our company's made a lot of these mistakes. And when we made those mistakes, or we saw things like that, we said, you know what? Let's write them down. Let's really try to help the consumer if they're buying property outside their home country. Because, by the way, this works anywhere in the world. A property in Thailand, a property in Europe, a property in Central South America. It's not your home country. It's different. And we don't know what we don't know. And we also bring assumptions that may or may not be valid, right? All the bathrooms have hot water. Of course they do. Well, maybe they don't, right?
Maybe they don't.
Maybe they don't. So so info@ecidevelopment.com. Just write consumer guide in the subject line. We'd love to send you a copy of it. It's a free download, and it's a great resource if you're thinking about property overseas.
Awesome. Well, definitely appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So now I want to break down. So let's say you've identified a property now. You've arranged financing, which it sounds like is mainly private capital in your situation.
Yep.
What are you offering to your investors? And then I want to break down kind of like the actual building component, because I'm sure it's much different than building here in the States.
Sure. Well, on the investment side, for shareholders, we don't really talk too much about that on public forums. It's private equity. It's open only to accredited investors. But for folks who are accredited investors who are thinking about investing overseas, right, to make some kind of overseas investment, it's certainly something that we can provide the further information. I mean, executive summary is easy. They can get that without filling out any forms. But then obviously to dig in deeper, look at financials, get our business plan, PPM, you have to fill out an NDA and then we can, and the certification forms and stuff like that. But that's all I'll say on that. But that's an option for people that may be interested. But typically your real estate investor, and these are the folks that we do serve the most, right? And they can be accredited or non-accredited, right? And you're going to own a piece of property. First thing, we only work in countries where we can deliver fee simple title or the civil law equivalent, right? So in civil law, it's called escritura publica, public title, right? In the common law countries like Belize, it's fee simple title or strata title if it's a condo, right? So it's ownership of the heir and the undivided interest. So title is absolutely mandatory. So
and just for those that don't know, just to color that in, that means that you actually own the land that you're on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there are places in the world where it's a land lease or it's a 100-year land lease, different things like that. So first thing you're looking for is, you want fee simple title.
I believe so. I think as a real estate investor, that's pretty important. So
Yeah,
correct.
you want to own the dirt.
You do. You want to own the dirt, right? So everything we do, all the properties that we work with, that is the first fundamental basis, right? And you know, for property investors, sometimes people, I don't know, there's no leverage. Let me just start there. There's almost no leverage, or the leverage that's there is fairly expensive to make it not particularly attractive. And this I think is a psychological, more than anything else, a psychological stumbling block for a lot of U.S. Real estate investors, because we're so used to leverage. And when the interest rates were 3-4%, I mean, it wasn't free money. It was extra free money, because inflation was 4 and you're 5, right? So you actually make you're right crazy, right? And so you could get free money to borrow. You leverage the heck out of something and get as much as you can that way. Overseas, capital is expensive. Interest rates are almost today all double digit. I mean, 10 to 15%. And so it's really hard to leverage overseas and have it really be a significantly important investment. And capital and leverage has always been the challenge of the region. A lot of times people are like, why is the developing world so slow in developing? A lot of it just simply has to do with capital and the cost of capital. It's just thin, right? And so so what the stumbling block for a lot of U.S. real estate investors is, wait a minute, I got to pay full price. Yeah, if it's a $250,000 property, you write a check for $250,000, but you own it, it's yours, you have no mortgage, right? And so typical returns that are, and again, by U.S. standards, they're not astronomically awesome, but 6-7%. And in years 1, 2, 3, maybe. And over time, you start to get market stabilization, you get product stabilization. So you get some stabilization in the marketplace, you get product stabilization. The numbers will get up into the, high single, low double, right? 9, 10, 11, 12. But that's over, say, a 5 to 10 year period. Those kinds of investment returns really can be real. They're not all real. Anything that starts out in the double digits, I become very suspect, because there's no way to leverage it. Look, if you could leverage it at 4% money, then I mean, you can start to see some nice double-digit returns. But on a straight cash on cash, 100% paid for, 5, 6, 7, getting up into the 9, 10, 11. That's about the range that we as our company look and can do deliver, and then can deliver over 27 years, right? I mean, we've been doing this a long time. So, and that's not to say there aren't some home runs. The condo building that we bought from Citibank, because we bought it so inexpensively, right? It was a very opportune moment, right? Those returns actually pushed higher because we were able to acquire for so much less. But on new construction, kind of that range is about right. And then the thing that's really important, Oliver, that this goes back to that whole path of progress, or the time machine, right? Is if you said, look, I want something that's going to cash flow well right now, I'm willing to accept a lower return, because the lower return is the higher sales price, right? So you would go to a place like Cancun or Costa Rica, like you said, you're in Tamarindo, right? Or Jaco,
right?
One of the two, right? So you buy something in Jaco, it's priced higher than the comparable property, say, in Nicaragua. In fact, quite honestly, it might be double. The price in Jaco is easily double what you would pay for the same square footage, same view of the ocean, whatever, in Nicaragua, right? But at Jaco, you're going to get a lot of traffic. It's going to rent a lot because you got a lot of people coming there.
Right.
You paid more for the property. Maybe the average daily rate, the ADR, is a little bit higher, but your yield will still be in that, whatever, 5, 6, 7, maybe something like that, right? In a country like Nicaragua, you're going to buy it for half the price, whatever that. And it's $500,000 in Jaco, it's $250 in Nicaragua, say. But your occupancy is going to be lower, and your average daily rate is going to be lower. So you're still going to make that same 5, 6, 7%, right?
Sure.
But in a country like Nicaragua, as it becomes more popular, it starts up what I call the steep side of the curve, where you're going to pick up an appreciation element that we don't predict it. We don't put it in the numbers ever, right? It's just cash on cash, right? But in a country like Nicaragua, right, you're going to pick up a real strong upside on appreciation as the country becomes more popular, in addition to the cash flow. And here's what also happens. Now the ADRs go up, right? Because instead of $100 a night in Nicaragua, you can charge 150, and your occupancy goes from say 30, 40% to 50, 60%, but your cost basis was still 250, right? Now you got to wait 5, 7, 10 years. Like that's what it is. It's that kind of a hold. But if you have a 5 to 10 year hold frame, I always say, look at countries that are lower on the curve. If you say, look, I want to be in and out of this thing in 3 to 5 years, something in Jaco might be a great choice, or something in Cancun. Like you're going to get immediate cash flow. It's going to work. It's going to produce that return for you. But your appreciation's it's tapering off a little bit. You're not getting that, that steep climb.
Big swing. Yeah.
Yeah. So depending on your time frame and depending on what your risk tolerance is, because look, the other thing that could happen in Nicaragua is it doesn't get more popular, right? Who knows? So although the same thing is also true. Cancun, I was supposed to speak at a conference in Cancun next week, and they canceled it. They moved it. They moved it to Panama because of all the cartel drug violence. Like a lot of the people coming to this conference were calling the organizer saying, we're not coming to Mexico, right? So I mean, you can have a place like Cancun that's really, really popular, and it can kind of drop off, for other factors. So,
So give us a hot tip from in the trenches. Where's a good spot now for kind of what you're talking about that has a nice, potential hockey stick built in it in terms of appreciation. Obviously, also I think safe is a big one, right? Safe and then stable government, I think would be another one.
Yeah. I have said this many times and absolutely in my heart of heart, believe it to be absolutely true. And that is Belize, and very specifically Ambergris Caye, Belize, this little island. So Belize is about the size of Vermont, New Hampshire, right? And off the coast, they've got about 300 little islands. And one of these islands, the biggest of them, is called Ambergris Caye. It's 26 miles long, couple miles wide, and it has the town of San Pedro. That island generates 70% of all the tourism revenue for the country of Belize. Okay. So yeah.
That's the hot spot.
That is the spot in Belize. If you're an investor, like if you said, I'm a lifestyle buyer, I just want to be at the beach, a little more quiet. There are plenty of beautiful beaches where you can buy a home and have a beautiful, quiet existence. Right.
Yeah.
But if you're a real estate investor, Ambergris Caye, Belize, San Pedro, and then
on this show, we like money. So we're going to San Pedro.
San Pedro. Good. Yeah. And I know we're talking about real estate investors, right? So yeah, Ambergris Caye, San Pedro. Now layer on the fact that you've got these cruise ships that have been coming to Belize for the last 12, 15 years, thousands and thousands of people who have taken Belize from this no name, where is it? What are you talking about destination to, oh yeah, I've heard of Belize, right? My went there on a cruise ship. My cousin just got back from there. They loved it, right? Wheel of Fortune gives away free weeks in Belize on the game show, right? Okay. But on the island of Ambergris Caye, San Pedro, there are 3 branded hotels. 2 high-end, a Curio and an Autograph, and then our Best Western, which is 3 blocks off the water, serving a middle-class $150, $175 a night kind of client who's coming to the island, but wants that certainty. So brands are the next evolution in the marketplace, in the path of progress. And so there's 2 expensive brands, one in middle-class, inexpensive brand, 3-star property kind of thing. And then our Marriott, which is under construction, which is a 4.5-star property right on the water. And
how does that work? Is that just like a JV deal with these brands? Like you kind of put the project together and then they put their name on it and JV somehow?
Well, yeah, actually what it is you get they call it a license agreement, but it's really, think of it as a franchise. Basically, you buy the franchise, you have to build it to their specifications, you have to follow all their rules. The beautiful thing about brands, see, there's kind of 2 sides to the brand thing, right? There's the certainty, there's the mainstream market, the people who are now starting to really come to Belize in bigger and bigger numbers. They're looking for certainty, they're looking for brand, but there isn't much there for them. So it's kind of a hole in the marketplace, kind of like our mortgage company way back when. What do you mean there's no mortgage money? No, there's none, zero. So we filled that hole, right? The branded hotel product on the island of Ambergris Caye, right, does that. It's filling a big hole in the marketplace. And people are always like, well, are you worried about the Hyatt and the Westin and the Sheraton that's coming next? I'm like, no, bring it on. Cancun is not a destination because it has 4 branded hotels. Cancun is a destination because it has 50 branded hotels,
Right.
whatever.
They're all there. Yeah.
They're all there, right? And so, as Ambergris Key moves through this path of progress, more and more brands will come. But for the next 3 to 5 years, right, it's like it's us and it's two others, right? And so the opportunity to own a branded product that then goes into a rental program. So the brands give certainty to the marketplace. But what they're really, really good at, and why you want to partner with a brand, is they put heads on beds. That's what they do. They put heads on beds.
Because now you're part of their network.
Absolutely. And, and all these business travelers running around racking up points all over the US, right? Where they're taking their family on vacation, they're coming to Belize.
Right.
And what people don't understand as an ownership group, and that would include people who own the other, like the residences. So we have, we're going to keep 130 of the residences. We have 70 available for private sale. About 26 or 27 of those are already committed, right? They're already reserved and owned independently. But the ownership group of the whole, all of us together, right? When somebody comes and turns in their points, we get paid in cash. Because what happens is, if I go to a Marriott, in St. Louis, and I check in, I get my points, that hotel in St. Louis has to send like $5 a night over to some Marriott fund where they run the money. And then later, when I go and redeem my points in Belize, Marriott actually sends money to the owners of the hotel in Belize that they've taken, over $5 a night from all these other places, right? And that's how the point system basically works. So a destination that's a resort destination loves points, loves the Bonvoy program in the Marriott case, right? Because where are people going to use their points on vacation? Belize and other resort destinations. Yeah. And the
Makes
other
a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the other thing we've done with the Marriott is we built the largest conference space on the island of Ambergris Key, the second largest in the country of Belize, so that we can actually then host conferences and events that would otherwise not come to the country. And that's what's happening now. Belize is not getting large conferences, right? A big real estate conference, for example, they just can't come to Belize because there's no space for them. So we've actually
not there. Yeah.
Right. So we built a large conference space, large F&B back end to support that, so that we can actually host big events and conferences to, again, drive more occupancy in that property, which is good for everybody. Right. It's good for us. It's good for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So real quick, Oliver, to answer your question, Belize, Ambergris Key specifically, is my absolute number one pick for the, say, 3, 5, 7-year time frame. I think you can hold longer than that, right? But it's what I'm going to call midterm, right? I don't think there's any short-term investment, by the way. Let me just say, short-term, 1 to 2 years, there aren't any. I mean, you might find that, fire sale, divorce, whatever, boom, in, out, right? But other than that sort of lightning striking in Central America and Latin America, there are no short-term opportunities. Midterm, 3 to 7, or 5 to 10. And in the 5 to 10, Nicaragua. And by the way, I'm talking about countries that we work in. We've invested a lot of our corporate assets. I personally have a lot of our family money in both of these countries as well, and actually have far more money in Nicaragua personally than I do in Belize. And whether somebody bought one of our properties in San Pedro or something else in San Pedro, as a real estate investor, take a look at that for midterm. And I would strongly suggest Nicaragua for that 5 to 10 year play, not just for the cash flow, which will be okay, but the appreciation side of it, which could be incredible. I believe it will be. I've got my own money on the table there, with a pretty heavy bet that that's going to happen. So
that's great. Where anywhere specifically in Nicaragua you like? Because I've actually got my eye on there now that we did 30 days in Costa Rica. I want to go there next, and I know there's a lot of really good surf down there. So selfishly, I'm going to ask about that.
Well, sure. Well, look, I'm going to plug our project, which is Grand Pacifica, right? This is the community that we started in 2002. We put fiber to the home, right? This is a world-class community. We built 9 holes of golf. We've got, I guess about 200 residences now between homes and condos. We have homes 150 yards from the ocean that start at $129,000. I mean, in San Diego, if you're 150 yards from the water, like, what are you paying for a house, Oliver? I don't even know.
You're adding a few zeros to that number for sure.
There you go. Right. So 150 yards from a surf break, beautiful beach break called Azochillo, right? $129,000. If you want to be right on the water, right there, beautiful 2 and 3 bedroom homes on the water, starting at 400,000. So $400,000 to $500,000 homes.
That's amazing.
On the Pacific Ocean, right?
Yeah, on the sand.
On the sand.
And what is and for those types of deals, is there financing available, or are those cash deals?
Well, because I helped start the mortgage company, which actually, full disclosure, became a bank. It is a bank in Belize called Key International Bank. I'm on the board. I'm on the management committee. So, but yes, Key Bank actually lends up to 50%, very, very conservative lending, 50%. And then when we work with consumers who are looking for property, we will finance up to another 30% as a sort of a take back. So clients can actually get up to 80% financing on a property in one of our communities. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is.
That's really amazing.
Yeah. And by the way, you're a surfer. One of the 10 best surf breaks in Central America is called the Meat Grinder. And our property sits right in front of it. So for you, you need to come down and surf the Meat Grinder.
I'm going to check that out for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I this is very interesting. I think this is super fascinating. I guess the kind of final step, or the last phase I want to talk about, is just obviously the projects you're doing are quite large in scale, but for someone that was interested in maybe going down there and like buying a lot and maybe building either a house for themselves, or like you said, a small bed and breakfast to kind of live that lifestyle, what is the process involved in that? How does that look?
Yeah, great question. First thing that anyone thinking about that needs to do is get a copy of the Consumer Resource Guide. Okay,
that's right.
I'm not kidding.
Get yourself a guide. That's for sure.
I'm not kidding. And that's just like saying, okay, I'm humble. By the way, humility is the single best asset any foreign investor can have in any new location. Humility, right? And that's what this hopefully helps to begin to get people out of there. I know how to do this, so I've done this in the U.S. and right. I mean, that attitude right there is the attitude that puts you flat on your face overseas, right?
All right?
Humility is the most valuable tool we have when we go overseas. Second thing is a saying, you never get what you expect, you only get what you inspect. All right. And so if you're going overseas, one of the things we talk about in the Consumer Resource Guide is hire a third-party engineering firm to oversee the construction, right? That's really important, independent third party. And that's
a great tip, by the way.
It is. Let me qualify it. I think it's a good tip because it's what a lot of people can do. The best tip, a great tip, is to physically be there yourself. Like physically be there. Look, and I'm going to go way off field here for a second, but I'm going to bring it back for the. I hope whatever.
Yeah, we're good. Let's run it.
For the first time in human history, that's a pretty powerful statement. But for the first time in human history, work and the location of work has been decoupled for a large amount of society. Like you go all the way back to caveman. I mean, you had to kill the animal. You had to go pick the berries, right? The agricultural revolution. Oh, we learned how to grow stuff and tend flocks, but you still had to be there. Then the industrial revolution, right? Changed society incredibly, but you still had to show up at the factory to work the machine, right? Well, now, because of COVID, and you talked about, the COVID a little while ago, right? That because COVID had stay-at-home orders, we've actually had the technology to allow people to work from home for a decade, or whatever, 15, 20 years maybe, right? The problem is the management style was still industrial, right? So no, you got to show up to work. I want to see you sitting in your seat. But people would sit in traffic, an hour or 2 hours each way so they could talk on the phone in a cubicle. Like, that is insane. Nobody needed to do that, right? The only reason it happened was management demanded it. Well, boom, it's broken, right? That got broken. Stay at home. Management had to figure it out. In fact, I just read yesterday that the number of companies, for a while, people said stay at home. Then the company was starting to really demand people to come back. No, you got to come back if you want to keep your job. Well, over the last 3 months, that has slowed down. I think companies kind of said, whoa, when people are quitting, right? And so the number of companies that demand full-time attendance, let me just call it that, has actually gone down. It was way down, it went up, and it's coming back down again. And so this reality opens up a whole new possibility for so many people. You were in Costa Rica for 30 days. You could do this from anywhere, Oliver. Right? I mean, there's so many things we can do. So I said I would bring it back. Here's my bringing it back. If you want to open any kind of business, if you're building a vacation home, hire a third-party engineer, go down as often as you can, right? I understand that. If you're building any kind of business, if you're making a business investment, small bed and breakfast, small development, small condo project, or large project, whatever it is, right? But you absolutely must be there. You must be there to visually inspect every day the work, and that is my fundamental bottom line advice for anybody looking to do business in the region. That is not remote. That one is the opposite. You physically must be there.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I think we got a tech issue, but I'm just going to keep going as long as you can hear me.
I can. Yes.
Okay, cool. I think that there's a lot of opportunities. A lot of people would like to do what you just mentioned, kind of get down there, do the bed and breakfast thing, do the building thing. Now, the tip you gave, I think, is really awesome about hiring the third party to manage the construction, because they're going to know local laws, local regulations, things like that. And then you're also suggesting to actually be there in person, because I think that around here, a lot of people invest out of state. But if you're building something, especially internationally, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're suggesting to actually be there, boots on the ground, to manage the construction piece.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to that. You don't get what you expect. You only get what you inspect. And you will be your best inspector always.
And what are the biggest challenges, would you say, of doing the development down there, like doing construction, building?
The surprises that you just can't even imagine. I've got pictures. I mean, right. I mean, I've learned how to pay attention in different ways, right? That's what it is. I'm just different ways of paying attention. So we were building streets and sidewalks and stuff like that, and fire hydrants. So I mean, we were one of the few developments that actually have fire hydrants, right? But anyway, so fire safety. I mean, again, who thinks of that? But anyway, literally, I remember, I've been gone a week or two. I came back and they're rolling out sidewalks, beautiful handmade brick sidewalks. Because again, here's a tip. This is a little different tip, but let me just say it. Stuff that's really expensive in the United States, anything that's handcrafted, right? Handmade, ironwork, tile work, mosaics, woodwork, things like that would be outrageously expensive in the US because it's high labor, are very, very inexpensive. And so you can actually design really cool things that become super sexy. They're just so over the top awesome. And they look like $1 gazillion, but you didn't spend $1 gazillion because labor's so inexpensive, right?
Yeah.
So
same with furniture. I couldn't believe when I went down to Costa Rica how cheap this gorgeous living edge tables and just stuff that would be like thousands of dollars here at a living spaces or whatever is a few $100 down there.
Take a zero off, right?
Exactly.
Take a zero off, right? Yeah. And so right, you start to see that when you're down there, right? So we have these handmade brick sidewalks, and they're handmade because sometimes there's a dog print or a chicken footprint in them. I mean, they're handmade and they dried in the sun and then they baked them, right? Anyway, I come back after a week, 10 days. I'm on a trip. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, I come back and literally there is a fire hydrant in the middle of my sidewalk. And I'm just like, you're right. I mean, nobody in the US would ever, somebody would call the super over and go, hold on a second, is this really supposed to go here?
Yeah.
Right? No. I'm sorry. The plan says the fire hydrant goes right here, right? It's those kinds of things.
Right.
And that
makes sense.
You're right. You just can't even predict. So it's the unpredictable things that happen. The normal construction stuff, it's look, if you're building out, and most of the construction in Central and Latin America is concrete. So just think, it's masonry, right? So whatever the masonry techniques and tools and strategies and stuff are in the States, they carry across, right? but it is those crazy things like that that you just can't even imagine possible that come up. And some of them are, a few $100s. Okay, move it, right? Okay. But some of them can be, tens of thousands of dollars too. And so the more you're there, had I been there, right, and walking the site instead of off speaking at a conference or something or whatever, I would have caught it long before it got built, right? But that's why being there is so, so important. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess the last question on that note is just how do you stay, I don't know if the right word is in compliance, but just making sure that you're not doing anything that is, against the legalities, against the local ordinances, and just making sure you're doing things properly.
Yeah. This is going to sound a little bit strange, but resist the local way of doing things, because the local resist it. The local way is, there's always a little bit of this, right? They're always, we've been in business 29 years, starting with our mortgage company, and 29 years of doing business in the region. We have never paid a bribe. 29 years, we've never paid a bribe. And I understand that bribery or, a little, whatever is the way it gets done locally, right?
Yeah.
You got to resist that. Because what really happens when that happens is somewhere a corner is being cut somewhere. And so now you've moved outside of true legality. The other thing is that actually paying a bribe as a U.S. citizen is illegal in the United States. It's the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, right? So you can actually get in trouble in the U.S. for paying a bribe overseas. So there's a very legal, technical reason, but there's also the very practical reason, which is, you've now cut a corner. And the other thing is I always say, if you pay the first bribe, just run down to the tattoo parlor and have a dollar sign tattooed right to the front of your forehead, because now you're marked as someone who pays, right? Look, that every country has building codes, building regulations. You have to get a building permit. Architects and engineers are licensed. The legal firms are very, very good. And so, if you just simply step into the formal process and follow it through, you can really stay within the bounds. And that's what we should do, right?
Yeah,
We're
makes
not
sense.
local.
Yeah.
We're not
exactly.
local. So,
Right.
Let's just follow the rules. And sometimes it takes a little longer, I'll be honest. I mean, somebody's waiting for a little bit of this, like they might hold you up, but it's worth waiting. It's worth following the process to get to the other side. And then you become known as a company. By the way, what we also do, we've never paid a bribe, but we've literally paid and raised money and paid out of our own pocket millions of dollars in corporate social responsibility. We build health clinics, we build schools, we donate ambulances and police cars and police motorcycles. We do school projects and health projects. We bring in Rotary groups and faith-based groups to come work in the local community. We work alongside them, right? So we've integrated ourselves significantly in the local community in ways that have high dollar impact as well as social impact, right? And so then when somebody at the national level decides, at the environmental department or whatever, says, we're not going to give them that permit, we're just going to wait till they pay us, right? We can get on the phone to the mayor or vice mayor and say, hey, can you help us out? We need you to run down to the national environmental office and just see if you can help get this permit through. Because we can't hire a whole bunch of people in your community and we can't keep going until we get this thing. And so we've had great cooperation from the local authorities. Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House for many years, going back into the Reagan era, had a great saying. He said, all politics is local. And he was absolutely right about that. And so when you build the strong local relationships, we don't engage in politics. We don't pick, we don't vote, we don't campaign finance, no donations, no nothing, right? But when we build a clinic, right, we invite whoever.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you're just doing good things for the community, which gets you in good graces in the community.
Absolutely. And then they will help us out, on the backside if there are challenges with permitting or red tape. And again, we'll follow the red tape. I mean, whatever it is. But when the red tape gets strung across, and then they can help break through it, according to process. And right, it works. But stay clear of the local way and just hold to what is true, engineered, legal, and just carve your own clear path. And when you do that, you will have staying power in the marketplace for decades. That's really the key, right? You want to be around for a long time. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's the name of the game in real estate.
absolutely.
Well, I got to say, Michael, this has been very insightful. I
It's been
mean,
fun.
I've learned a ton about, international real estate development. I'm very interested in doing this myself one day. Like I
Good.
said, I've been to Central America a few times and I just really love it down there. The lifestyle, the slow pace, the
Yeah.
sun, the water,
Yeah.
all of it. So one final question just to wrap up here is in 60 seconds or less, what do you think it takes to be a successful international real estate developer?
Wow. I can actually sum it up in a lot less because I would just remove the word international and just say Zig Ziglar said it best when he said, if you help enough other people get what they want, you can have what you want.
Oh,
And
that's good.
so, right. And so when we find opportunities to serve a need, we can be successful. And so I believe it always is fundamentally serving others and internationally or nationally, but internationally, lots of opportunities to do that.
Great advice. Again, Michael, really appreciate you coming on. This
Nice to
has
be
been an
here.
awesome interview. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the box down below. Get in contact with us. We'll circle back with Michael, get those answered for you. And as always, if you like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button because this is the show for you. We'll see you on the next one.